이거 잘 글씨 보이니? 잘 안 읽혀지지? 내가 그냥 설명하면서 할게 어떤 건지. 이거 다이어그램 뭐 이렇게 열심히 만들어봤자 뭐 보이지도 않고 대충 만들. Okay, today is the second part of Lam Kulhas. So let me go back to the diagram of historical change in the skyscraper in Manhattan. It's not clear, so let me explain. So this one is the flat iron building in 1902. This is the so this is a series of evolution of skyscrapers from 1902, 1924, 31, 50, 70, 80, 70, 80, 2000. So this is a historical change, and the section actually the section is also changed too. This is almost like the section is. All the floor has the same, all the floor is the same, but it has a step like the shade because of the zoning law, right? I think it's similar with the Korean architectural law too. Korean architecture, we, kind of a guideline of buildings according to sunlight. And this one is too. And then 50, 40, 50 international style came to the US. The Le Corbusier and Miss Van der Rohe, especially Miss Van der Rohe, he proposed kind of a very homogeneous building typology made by the glass. So the SOM, the design corporate SOM, they firstly proposed the skyscraper, which has an international style, and Miss Van der Rohe. He did too. And then, there is the purple colors is coming out suddenly. That means the public, the programs. The reason is that before 1950 in New York, the street condition wasn't that good. Traffic is really heavy, and also drug, how to say, the prostitute on the street. Do you know the prostitute? Prostitute is 매춘 on the street, and drug seller on the street, and the mafia on the street. Sometimes they kill a person on the street, shot a person sometimes. But after mid 20th century, street condition is getting better. So, and also the New York City government, they try to make the city condition better. So they kind of recommend the building developer to have a more public program on the ground level. The same thing is happening in Seoul too. I think when I was a child, 80, street was really not good, dirty, and so many smokers on the street. But now I think it's relatively much better than it used to be. So I talked about this part last class, and then I'm going to finish this one today. So this one is the kind of a hybrid between the international style and the step-looking buildings in Manhattan. It's built in 1931. It's very typical floor plan, the core and the columns. So now it's still looking good, actually. And the regulation, building regulation, actually, they regulate the shape of buildings. So because of the building guideline, all the buildings in Manhattan look like this. This one is too. And then international style, by modernism architects, they start to make kind of this kind of style, the box type buildings. And then the New York government, they realized probably they need a new zoning law. So that makes actually this kind of building, the very glass towers. Yeah. So this part of buildings applied by 1961 zoning law. The reason I show this building is in Julius, New York, Lamb is actually, he didn't talk about this part. He only talked about that part. So he was trying to show the relationship between, architectural law and the urban design, the building. Urban design means the grid and also the building typology. But he didn't actually, that book is published in 1972. So he didn't actually carefully see this part too. But the most of skyscrapers in Manhattan actually that they are using the 1961 zoning law. So looking at this one is very important. So what I want to say is situation of Julius, New York in 70s is very different from current situation. That's the point I want to say. And yeah, it's the same. It used to be like that. The street has no public space, but the skyscraper is getting, because it has the same FAR. Do you know the FAR, right? 용적률, same FAR. So getting higher, but they can generate the public space here. So that means the city condition, actually, street condition is getting bigger. I think I probably talk about that. Also, the New York, they provide the bonus FAR too. If you to create a public space, you can get 20% more. And if you create a cultural program like theater, you can get 20% more FAR. And it's on the same, actually, this city, our town, Seoul is also, they start to use this kind of thing, this kind of regulation. So let me go just quickly. Level House, designed by SOM, by Gordon Bunshaft. Gordon Bunshaft is Pritzker Prize winner in 1983 or 84, I'm not sure. This is a beautiful building. This one is built in 1952, when we were in the Korean War. They built very fancy buildings. This podium is used as, I'm not sure, but a restaurant, cafe, and sometimes kind of the meeting area. And they made a pilot on the ground level. So this one is actually, it can be for the public. So it's idealistically great, and also aesthetically, comparing, if you considering the time, it's almost, I think it's more than 60 years ago, built in 60 years ago, but it's still great. The condition is really good. So I think I really like it. Probably is one of the the favorite building to me in New York. And this one is a famous building by Miss Van der Rohe, photo took by me, and have a open space here, right? And this one is also has an idea of the modernism, modernism architecture. The Le Corbusier, he said kind of idealistic, idea of urban design is the tower in the plaza. Do you know that concept? He proposed towers on the public space or park in the Paris in early 1930. So actually this building also has the similar idea in the public space and tower. And then, the building became the more complicated because the developer, if they provide the more cultural programs such as the theater, they can get more FAR. So developer, this typology is kind of interesting. I mean, they provide commercial programs or theater here, and then they can get more FAR here. So it's the kind of win-win strategy, right? There is good for city, good for developer. So this one is kind of a post-modern style and it's modern style building, theater on the bottom part of the building, and the office. But then if you can see, this is actually higher than other buildings surrounding. And this section of that building is the theater and the office. The Marriott Hotel in Times Square, I mean, even though that is a hotel, but it has also theater too. So you can get the more FAR, but it became not higher, but bulky. The section of this building is very interesting too. I mean, so I think, the skyscraper, the origin of a skyscraper is the basic type of skyscraper is using the same floor plan, right? It's all the same. The section is kind of simple and boring. But in this city, and in our city too, the section of the high-rise buildings became more complicated in terms of section because the demand of the program is more diverse. So people need the theaters, people need commercial programs, people need sometimes the fitness center. So I mean, the accommodating that kind of programs is you need diversity of the section, diversity of plans. So it's actually the skyscraper is getting evolved. The hotel, inside of the hotel. And this one is also great building. It's structurally great, amazingly innovated. So typology, I mean, the idea is the office and this commercial, and they generate the sunken plaza. So this is a public area, public land. And this is the kind of the idea of a floating buildings, floating skyscraper. But and I mean, it needs a kind of, it's very high technology of structure. But there is a story about the structure. Actually, at that time, this one is built in 1978. The structure engineering company, they calculate this building of a structure. And then actually the student, I can think an architectural student or architectural engineering student as far as I know, the Princeton University, I guess, the graduate students, he, just without any reasons, he recalculated the structure of this building and he found it has some error, it has some mistake. So he talked to the person in the structural engineers, but he said, you are stupid. So he met a journalist. So he became super famous. And then other structural engineer, he recalculated this one. So he said the student was right. So the structure is during the construction, I think it's almost like this part. They recalculate the structure, and then they support more the columns in the bottom level. So yeah, I mean, now it looks like, it looks not very interesting. But I mean, if you go there, I mean, this one is actually a great building, super simple. But the section is beautiful though, to me. I mean, I just added this building because this is very unique. That it's very slender. The floor plan is like the very narrow floors. It has a gallery here. It's not related to the issue of my lecture, but let me just show. The Hearst Tower in 2006 by Norman Foster is a public space, and also it has the innovation of structure too. So that big heavy columns is support all the structural buildings, and by which they can have a big open atrium space on the bottom level. And this one is designed by Renzo Piano. Yeah, the commercial part of I think it's a gallery, I guess. It's a New York Times building, and the courtyard. Okay. So, what I want to say is let me go back to the one of the early pages. This one is is very famous section. It's not drawn by Lam Koolhaas, but he used this section in Dulles, New York. You might saw this. You might see this section already, right? Maybe in other class. But the idea of this one is actually, even though this one is skyscraper, but it has a sectional diversity because of in terms of the program diversity of programs. So the idea of this one is still going on, right? The section is very in terms of architecture interesting. In terms of construction is complicated. So that's what I want to say. So his book, subtitle of his book is Retroactive Manifesto. I talked about the meaning of a retroactive. The meaning of manifesto is you made the manifesto first, and then you applied that manifesto for something. But Lam Koolhaas, he got the idea from the existing situation, the urban situation, and then he found a manifesto of that, and then he used that manifesto for his building. And also, the video which I showed you the last Tuesday, he is very influenced by the utopian ideology in architecture. So, in video, you already saw the constant, the project of constant. The constant is not architect. Constant is the artist, kind of visionary artist. So this one is, he actually, it doesn't have any specific site. He applied this idea to sometimes city, sometimes on the sea, sometimes, the different situation. But the main idea, the theme of this one is the ground is not good. So the people has to gather on the, kind of the artificial platform. So this one is kind of architectural utopia. So it has a school inside, it has a workplace inside, it has a hospital, it has a home. So everything is to me it's like apartment. It's like the, what is that? Tower Palace. Tower Palace is, it has everything inside. But anyway, so it's the idea of the 60s. And also, it's similar idea. This, I think, I'm not sure about this, Manhattan, I guess. It's not Manhattan. But Yona Friedman also suggests the idea of a kind of utopia. So, it's the same. Street is not good. Street is all the crime, prostitute and killers and mafia and drug sellers. So, good people has to live in a platform here. So it has a school, it has hospital, it has workplace, it has home inside. So the structure is kind of plug-in system. This kind of idea is also influenced on the Archigram and Super Studio, that kind of thing. Yona Friedman, it looks like the Brooklyn Bridge, the suspension bridge, suspension residential bridge. I think this one is still interesting. And the famous architect, the famous structural engineer, Buckminster Fuller, it's a different approach, but the idea is the same. this part is dirty, this part is all the, bad things, and this part is good. So good people has to be here. I mean, in the video you already saw the lamp cross. He made a wall. Good people lived in the inside of the wall. Bad people lived in the outside of the wall. It's the same, all the same. I mean, that's the issue of 1960s and 70s. But lamp cross was different. Lamp cross said each grid has an identity. Each grid has, I mean, similar, but it's a bit different. I mean, he thought each grid is the platform. Already, it is platform. It's like this one. So grid itself, each grid itself, it can be something different. So each grid is isolated by the the avenues and street. So it can be anything. It can be skyscraper. It can be any typology. It can consume any typology. So that's the most important thing of New York. So that's why he said New York, Manhattan is architectural laboratory, because it's the shape of land is the same, all the same. It's perpendicular too. So it's easy to use the one single architectural idea. I mean, for example, in Seoul, doing design is not easy. It's difficult because the Seoul has topography. Seoul has mountains, hills, and Seoul's it's not like the urban fabric of Seoul is not like this, right? It's very kind of complicated. The block is much wider than the Manhattan. I think the block in Gangnam area, I think at least like this size, approximately. But I mean, this one is really good for the one single buildings. So I mean, the kind of the similar time of writing the Delirious New York, he suggested this. I mean, you know this project, right? In video. So it's good people live here, bad people live here. But the idea is his observation in Manhattan is different from this one. That is it makes the one huge, the block. But this one is, he said that each block has kind of a characteristic. So he's the kind of idea about the New York is a little bit different from his architectural things. So actually, his design approaches he changed after writing these books. Yeah, this was a map of that. I mean, it's just for fun. Living here is good. If you ride on the subway, everyone is looking at the phone, right? The phone is utopia in Korea. Actually, Super Studio, they also have a similar idea. So it's not only his kind of not by his creativity. I mean, this kind of idea is so prevailing at this time. But after New York, he's changed. Okay, let's see the project of OMA. So the first one is Ravillette competition. I think it's a very famous competition. It used to be a pig meat slaughter in Paris. It's suburban area, the boundary of Paris. And then, after the city grew up, the city thought about rehabilitating this area, so they made a competition. So actually, Bernard Tschumi won the competition. I think everyone knows that project. Well, Lamb Cross, do you know? I think it's probably in one class. You showed this project. The idea of this is the same as the Manhattan things. The Manhattan has grid, but it has strips. So each strip has different functions, different roles, it can be changed. It can be anything in the future. So that's the main idea. So architects, designer, I mean, we don't have to. The claim is actually architect and urban designer. We don't need to do anything. I mean, we can just propose a strip, and then as time goes by, the people can do something in this strip by themselves. So sometimes it can be desert. What is that? I think it looks like a Chinese drawing. I don't know. Anyway. And then this one is the same too. I mean, but the shape is different. I mean, it's a strip. But it is the dot. He used dots here, but each dot has a different landscape. Each dot has a different function, but idea is the same. It's the same as a Manhattan, right? Manhattan grid, the block has is a character. I mean, each block has its own character. So each circle has its own character. Sometimes it's garden, sometimes building, sometimes something. Yeah. So I think he won this project 1999. So it's in Toronto. I think it used to be the airport, but yeah, this is the ideology of view, but actual, right? The program of dots. So not sure it is something. Because this circle has a certain program. This circle has a certain program. These circles have certain programs, and then he redistributes these circles. Again, kind of looking random. But yeah, this one is Rabilet. I'm not sure what I'm showing this one. Yeah, it's a winning project by he likes red. You guys went there? Anyone went there? It's not good project to me. I think it's drawing is very powerful. I mean, it looks like each poly is each poly could control this big area from the bird's eye view. But if you go there, you cannot recognize the polys. I mean, you cannot see. This is too big. Each poly looks like, what is that? It's very ugly. Kind of disappointing. Yeah. So sometimes, the ideology is not always good in the real life. Yeah. That's the thing I realized. Anyway, yeah. And also another thing, he found the idea from the grid, and then he also found the idea from the architectural types in Manhattan, and then he used that idea to his project too. I mean, it's again this one, sectional diversity, and also this one is the illustration from his book. This is the city within a city. So one single building has everything inside. I mean, it's very common types in our country, but in Europe, this is not common. This is crazy. To European, I mean, it looks crazy building. So I think he won the second prize by the Grand Library in Paris. So it's like the meaning of the sketch is that it's very homogeneous floor plans, and then he added strange-looking shapes. This one is one single programs, big, the programs which needs the big area. It's the same, I mean, homogeneous floor, and then one crazy not crazy. One big, single programs is the same idea too. So it's a simplified model. I mean, he didn't put the floors here, but I think it's probably a theater or something like that. Yeah, here and floors and it's kind of a diversity of sections, and it's very idealistic. I think it's very shocking. I mean, still it looked very shocking, but he didn't win. Actually, the Dominic Perro, you know this guy, right? He designed something in Ewha Women's University. He won this competition when he was really young, probably younger than my age. And HYU library is at the same continuous surface, the sectional diversity. But yeah, flats and this band is make the diverse space in the sections. And then MVRDB, he copied that idea. So actually MVRDB is the first architect who built idea of a continuous surface. So he copied that. Actually, the Winimas and one of the principals of Winimas, I mean, probably three of the principals, they used to work in OMA. So as far as I know, the Lampras got really angry because he couldn't build, but he's the former employee, they built it, copying the idea. And then, I mean, he's the architect who does the practice and research at the same time. He's interested in the density, the high density of the city, and the condition of the specific urban situation. So he did the research with a student in Harvard University. So that one is the Kowloon University. I showed the video on Tuesday, right? It's demolished. This is crazy. The city of anarchy is 무정부주의. Because do you know the history of that building? Okay, let me show you. So, I mean, Hong Kong is the British government. United Kingdom, they invaded China, and then they won. And then I forgot the name of that. And China and UK, they made some how to say, the promise or something. And the Hong Kong is owned by British government for 100 years. But China, Qing dynasty, they want to put the one single military base in the middle of the Hong Kong. So this is Hong Kong, and this is the isolated military base. And there is one road. And then on a certain day, United government, they got angry, so they kind of destroyed this road, and so it's totally isolated. So it is owned by Chinese government, but actually there is no owner, right? No government. So it became the paradise of all the crimes and the Hong Kong mafia. And so there is no regulation of the building. So people, they crimes and mafias, they start to make the building and stack the building, attach more buildings, and then it became like this. And then now Hong Kongese government, because it went to China, the Chinese government, they demolished this part in order to make a park. So yeah, it's crazy. It's a section of someone drew that for the ventilation, super dirty, very dense. So yeah, Cross did the research of that. So it's kind of the ultra hyper density of Hong Kong. Okay. this illustration made by actually Lamcroft's wife, I think. So he's one of a proposer in the Roosevelt Island development. So he proposed in a series of buildings, one single buildings, not one big buildings, series of buildings. I'm not sure he. I mean that one is. I mean this one. I mean kind of a continuous surface and section diversity is not related to this building, but I mean I think he always tried to create the new typology of skyscraper. So I mean normally, conventionally, I mean in this kind of land, I mean people probably architect they propose this kind of building, right? But he made 4 small towers and then the one platform which connect all the part of these buildings. And then he used the same idea for the competition in 1980. And then he built it in his country, in Rotterdam. The same idea. Do you know this one? Is in Korea. I mean, I think it was early 2000. It's Seun Sangha development. I mean, there is a competition for the Seun Sangha development. And then after this competition, the government, they decide not to break down the existing building designed by Kim Soo-gun. So they, I think, I'm not sure who won this competition. I think the OMA won this, not OMA, MVRDB or OMA won the competition. But anyway, same, the small buildings and then platform connecting. Yeah. And then he built it. I mean, sometimes it is very important, I mean, as an architect, as a young architect, it's not easy to have a commission which you can use to your full ideas. It's almost like impossible. So, I mean, sometimes, I mean, Lamcroft is, and also is good example, and Ando, I mean, Ando is a little different. But sometimes, even if you don't have a real project, probably you need to develop your own methodology or discipline in architectural design, and then you can use that idea to the project when you get the opportunity. So yeah, he's like very strict person, right? He made this idea 40 years ago, and then use it. And in New York, I mean, this is a little different. I mean, New York has some strange shape of building. This one is the opposite. What is that? This is the opposite ziggurat type of building designed by Marcel Breuer for the Whitney Museum. There is a law. I mean, okay, how can I explain? So, I mean, these guys, they opened the competition, so they need more space for the gallery. But the problem is they don't have enough land to accommodate all the programs they have. So now Renzo Piano, actually, he just completed the construction, but he proposed the buildings. I don't think he wants to win the competition. I mean, the idea of this one is actually, it has a lower FIR than what it had. For example, I mean, it's the same land, right? It's the same, probably it has the same regulation. So this building could have this part more, right? But it doesn't have. So there is a very interesting architectural law So it has a kind of a right of this part. So, I mean, this part of, this part of FPIR, it goes to here. So he attached this building. So that one, the new building became higher than other buildings. But it needs to go to this way because that part is actually part of that building. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Yeah, so this is super strange, but it makes sense because he reapplied a kind of reinterpret the architectural law. It's kind of shocking things, but it's crazy looking. No one liked that. He didn't win, but that's the. But he used that idea here. And then he also used the same idea similar idea to the Seattle library. I mean, if you look at the model, it's the same as the Seattle library. You know Seattle library, right? So the good thing of him, is he always proposed crazy things, and then eventually he realized that. And that's the reason I like him. So, Darius New York was published in 1972, and then after that era, this is a photo took on the street, 1976. She was a prostitute, so it was very common doing the prostitute on the street in Manhattan. Now it's impossible, but 40 years ago it was possible. But the condition of the street became much better, and they also, I mean, this area used to be abandoned industrial area. So actually, as people, they couldn't imagine the park on the railway, but they did it. It's not proposed by government, the city government. Actually, it's many social activists and artists. They already do the kind of public, activities on here, and then they suggest making the park to the government, and the government made money, and then they do that. So that's why High Line is a good project. It's a very good example of the combination of the citizen and the government, city government, local government. The one we have a similar project. I think it's under construction. Making park on the highway, but the mayor of the city, Seoul, he said the High Line was a good example of that, but he didn't understand the intention of that one. Actually, so that project is citizen wants to have this kind of thing, so local government they made it. So it's like not top down, down top, but his way is a top down. So I don't want to talk about the politics, but the Korean politics is always top down. So I don't know. Probably in the future, we have to think about the city, and probably we need to suggest something to the city, and the city they has to make the place for the citizen, not for him, not for mayor. It's mayor of the Seoul. They always do one great thing for themselves to be president or something. It's not good for the citizen. Anyway, highway. And the success of highway, they made many proposals about the kind of the ground, this Hudson Park redevelopment. So it's all the skyscrapers and then one, the linear park. Yeah, so many things I have. I don't know. This is useful for you guys. Let me just quickly show. I don't think you need to know that one. The thing is, Manhattan has many the pocket park, this kind of small park, because the developer, if developer propose this park, they can get more FIR. So they have many things like that here. I mean, so all the this one is the park, small pocket park. And this is very cute place. Yeah, it's a good area. It's a connection. I mean, the kind of linear connection of this kind of park is actually one of the great things. So he said, the Lamcraft said, this is my observation. I said, this is my own theory. The Lamcraft said each block is isolated, each block is characteristic. But my idea is actually, after 70s, it has to be changed because all the block has kind of the connection of the public. So idea of a skyscraper, it has to be changed from the idea of a Lamcraft house. So these days, all the skyscrapers is super slender because the structure engineer, it became the more innovative, and the elevator is faster, much faster than used to be. So it can be slender, it can be higher, and it's super slender building. I mean, can you imagine? I think this one footprint of this building, probably this room, I guess. I think it's bigger than this room. I think twice bigger than this room, or this room size. It's small. I think this room size, and that, yeah. This part is this room size, and this part is I think twice bigger than this room. It's impossible. Yeah, it's 100-story buildings, but now it's possible. Innovation of structure. Yeah, it's the same. Yes. Done. Thank you.